injuries, getting injured, and having chronic reoccurring pain have been a part of my journey in my life. And thank God for them, because they've made me a better coach. Going through it, miserable. You never want to be injured. You never want to be limited in terms of what you can do. You never want to have that thing that's just won't go away no matter what you think you're doing right. But if it's not for those things, for example, if it's not for just unbearable jumper's knee to the point I can't even walk up and down stairs without like a lot of pain. I don't find David Gray, which I found David Gray listening to Just Fly Sports Performance podcast. At the time, he had 2,000 followers on Instagram. And I heard him talking about the missing link in helping people recover and get to a place of healthy tendon function regarding jumper's knee, and how the tradition, here's the traditional thing. You do some long duration isometrics for the quad. You strengthen your calves. You might do some tib raises. You definitely need to foam roll and stretch. Those, by the way, those were like considered to be like that's like the best case scenario, because before that it was just rest. Don't do anything to make it worse, which we now know could not be a more worse thing to do when it comes to rehabbing a tendon, right? You have to load it. And there's a lot of research that corroborates that now, fortunately. But at the time when I was going through this, it was, and so what did I do? I did all of those things. I tried to foam roll, stretch. I tried not to bend my knees, which of course was part of the problem in the first place. And so all of my squats, lunges, everything is super hip dominant. I'm barely getting into any knee flexion. I'm not training my quads. I'm training everything else, but I'm not training my quads, and I'm not doing a good job of getting full function through the knee joint, which is just through full range of motion. I'm not doing it. I'm avoiding it. It fucking hurts, you know? And it feels so counterintuitive to actually lean into that in a way that's practical and manageable. But between David Gray and honestly Jake Tura, jumper's knee protocol, absolutely fantastic. And Jake has really positioned himself as not just a tendon expert in strength conditioning, but on the planet. Jake has read every book. He has met with every specialist. He has conversated multiple times with every major tendon researcher, particularly in the sports performance field. And between Jake and David, the things that I did, so it's a chicken or the egg thing. Did you suddenly get a spike in volume or intensity that you weren't prepared for that pissed this tendon off? You continue to avoid loading that tendon and it exacerbates the problem? Or were you just not, that's just not your preferred movement strategy, right? So you think about quad dominant, knee dominant athletes versus hip dominant athletes. It's just not the most efficient way that you've developed to move a weight, to make a cut, to do the jump. And so relative to the amount of force you're capable of expressing, stopping, starting, jumping, changing directions, and what your quad and thereby tendon are capable of withstanding, have you created a discrepancy so large that now you don't have a knee functioning in a way that can actually deal with what you're capable of doing, right? Then it happens, then you lean more into being more hip dominant, as the case may be. So all that to say, the shortcut list is direct quad isolation training for me. You'll see in a lot of my training, if you follow me on Instagram, I have guys doing single leg extensions, pendulum squats, sissy squats, things where, and it's not just about like pushing the knees over the toes. That just to do it is actually very stupid. The only thing that we're trying to accomplish is load the quads. There should be, and like for some guys, their ankles are really mobile and they're able to do that really easily. And so their knees go past their toes a lot. Other guys, that's just not the case. It doesn't matter. Are we loading the quad? Yes or no? Right. And not only are we loading the quad, but on a week to week basis, are we able to load the quads in a way that is progressive, where we're getting measurable results? not just in the weight room, but subjectively speaking in terms of how the tendons and knees are feeling, right? So step one, you have to prioritize isometrics and quad dominant squats, lunges, quad training. We'll just say quad training, right? So, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. And this is where the Franz Bosch stuff comes into play in David Gray. David understands that as a byproduct of having this issue, this pain, this insult, that it's going to change how you move.
Yeah.
It just is going to, it's going to, period. There's no way around it. And through specific isometrics, for example, like a foam roller bridge, or a shrimp squat, which is like a quasi isometric. It's an isometric of the soleus and knee, but it's dynamic at the hip. You're able to sort of retrain, and I don't even know if retrain is the right word, but you're able to recover movement capabilities that you perhaps have lost in navigating that injury. And the trouble is that if you don't recover the ability to fully bend the knee, or for the muscles of the calf, quad, hamstring to co-contract around a knee joint at the right time, then you're going to be constantly put back into this cycle of those muscles not being able to show up at the knee joint at the right time. You piss off your knee tendon, and now you're back into the vicious cycle. So there's a coordination piece that can't be overlooked and can't be dismissed, which is something I would have dismissed a long time ago had it not worked for me and many of my athletes. Shout out Franz and David. So there's a coordination piece, but then there is very much so kind of like a more meathead approach, but it's just as valid and just as helpful, and they should be running parallel to each other, where it's like, we got to get this quad stronger, period.
How you get it is everything working together, right? Intermuscular coordination.
Yes.
Intramuscular coordination.
100%. And you have to have both. And it's funny because, like, as I look back, I'm like, why did I develop this jumper's knee in the first place? When I first started training for real, as opposed to working out, the notion and strength and conditioning performance is you don't do leg extensions. You don't do any isolation movements, because that's bodybuilding and it will make you slow and unathletic, right? So I just didn't do them. And then also, what was the communication, generally speaking, was chest up, butt back, weight in the heels, right? Which for me was great, because I didn't have to load my quads, because let's be honest, I've got long femurs and that's really hard to do, and it's not fun and it burns, and I can move more weight.
Your weight,
right?
numbers are still high, so it works.
My squat's going up, but my knee, but my quads and my knees are not getting stronger. So it was kind of like this perfect storm where, I'm kind of training one ability of my lower body to its max potential probably at that point in time, but I've got like these lower legs and knees that are just undertrained. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And so my knees took a beating, and then over a long period of time, like if you look at videos of my squat then, when I was like in the depths of my knee pain, it is just Mark Ripito would have, done a cartwheel watching me squat, right? Just hips back. Yes. yes.
Thumbs over.
Yes. Yeah.
Got that book over here?
I bet you do. Listen, that's how I learned, is just kind of exposing myself to it. And then today, like, my squat strategy just looks really different, and I've found the value of, like, particularly whether it's a unilateral or bilateral squat pattern, that being a more quad, knee flexion, vertical torso movement. And then if I want to train my hips, and my posterior, then that's going to be, a more hip dominant movement, right? And having, those really live at polar opposite in terms of form and function, from a visual perspective for my athletes.